Hello, everybody, and welcome back. This is Lessons for Full Spectrum Humans, the second semester of 2017, and this is the level 2 information. And what I'm going to be talking about, let me just grab my little sculpture here. And where did I put my pencil? I draw this all the time, and I did this in level 1 today, about the time vortex. And basically this layer down here being birth, where we enter the time vortex, and this membrane where my pen is highlighting at the moment being the membrane of death. And what I want to speak about is the idea of ascended mastery, what that means, what it means as we achieve these levels of being refined to this point, and also coming from the source, returning to the source, and the idea of energy and entropy. So, okay. Science describes the singularity as the center of a black hole, and it's a place where the fabric of space-time, and I add in consciousness, is stretched to an infinite level. Like, I'll draw a little quick sketch of this. That science describes, here's the infinitely stretchy fabric of space-time, and here's an infinitely heavy bowling ball, and when we place it on the fabric stretches downward, and it just keeps stretching downward, that it doesn't stop. So it would be like if we created a vortex, it would be like a vortex that keeps going. And this place where it's going and it never stops, that is what science describes as the singularity. And that is similar to what I'm talking about when I speak about this area in this torus. This torus is created by overlapping energy fields. And if I draw the overlap, the way that this energy flows, it comes, if this is the central convergence point, it comes from there, out from there, around, back to the center, and then out again into the physical reality and back to the center, and then keeps going around and around and around and around and around. I'm getting very messy, but you're getting the idea that that turns into this shape. So what is special about this central convergence point is that that is the place where everything overlaps. That is the place, the source and the destination. Everything comes from there, everything returns to there. This I also define as the 0th dimension. And I had to understand from some questions that people asked me in response to that, because in this time and place, in this cultural milieu, people think 0 means worthless. And it's very interesting. Like in the Middle Ages, when the number 0 was first introduced to Western society, people thought that it was devilish or witchcraft or something like that. They couldn't imagine nothingness. So I understood cultural milieu. No, 0 is not worthless, like $0. It means it does not require any amount of information to describe the position of something or someone or a particle or a force that is in this place, because everything is there. This is like the house that everything lives in. It's the infinite house. You don't have to put any address on a letter that you want to send to the infinite house, because everyone is there. You can just say, send it to infinity. Everyone is literally there. So this is the presence of all information, all particles, all forces, all possibilities, all probabilities. That's what I'm talking about. If I turn this sculpture like this, now we're looking at it like, oh, it's a record. Like that record that I drew. Yeah, that's exactly right. 0. Gina is saying, so 0 is all encompassing. Yes, 0 is all encompassing. It's not nothingness, like nothing, like you're a 0. I understand that's an insult in this world. It is everythingness. The 0th dimension contains everything. And so this record that we're looking at, everything that is in this bundle of timelines, when it focuses in, it all focuses in on that 0th dimension. But I want to get into flying rainbow lasagna because this is the advanced class and you're all lasagna experts. This is about energy and entropy, because this shape, oh, let me grab my little sculpture that fell down on the ground. I have to duck off camera. Hold on a second. My apologies. Sorry about that. Because I have these 2 little guys that I hardly ever show you. These are old sculptures, but I think they're pretty good because they are roughly the same scale. So if I orient this is the 4 vortex shape that we're all very familiar with. And if I orient it like this, right? What happens is that central convergence point, that central core, jumps upward and also jumps downward. And that is what makes these 2 pointy ends. So this shape is the end result of this shape jumping up and down very fast. And it jumps up and down so fast that it's as if it's in two places at the same time. This is just like if I did a long exposure photograph of my arm hitting a tennis ball with a tennis racket, going across like this. It might look like I have 10 million arms, but you understand intellectually that Aurora doesn't have 10 million arms. This is a long exposure of Aurora's arm moving across time. That is what we're looking at with the flying rainbow lasagna. This is the end result of this shape moving across time. And it moves up and down very, very fast. Or we could say that it stays in one place and that the rest of reality jumps up and down around it very, very fast. And all of this in order to understand that this is the singularity down here. And this is also the singularity up here. But you have to say, but wait, Aurora, like we're a super smart class and we understand that you have just spent time explaining to us that there's only one singularity. There's only one of these. There's only one. There's not more than one. So you're breaking the rules if you're making this flying rainbow lasagna sculpture that has more than one singularity, because singularity by its nature, by its definition, must be single. If we have more than one singularity, we have a duality. We have a multiplicity. It's not just a singularity. It's like saying, wait, Aurora, I thought you said there's just one address and all of the mail goes to the same house that's at one address. And I'm not lying. This is the whole point with flying rainbow lasagna. I'm redefining. So in order to transform this shape into this shape, I'm not cutting the fabric of the cosmos. I'm not cutting timelines. That would be like ending lives. I'm not doing anything that is not allowed. I'm doing everything that is allowed. I am pushing the boundaries or the envelopes. So this is just like doing math. And I joke when I tell my people about my class, it's like, it involves math, but don't worry, it's fun math. This is not the math of Arabic numerals. So vortex-based math is the beginning of Earth's current human society, surface human society, understanding that math can be expressed as a series of visualizations and vectors or forces that move in a particular direction. That's what the flying rainbow lasagna is. This is a literal math formula that is in the form of a shape, because that is how math is done in this higher dimensional language of color, line, shape, form, movement, texture, and tone. So I'll do a whole teaching later in the semester that lays out all the information about vortex-based math, because it's a little bit complex and requires a lot of backstory. But the whole point is, if I move to this sculpture instead, you're putting down too many things. Vortex-based math, and I'll show you the picture that's associated with it. So we've got this torus shape, and I've just spent time defining this as the membrane of death. Well, in vortex-based math, that membrane is covered in a specific arrangement of numerals, and the arrangement is similar to Sudoku, where all the numerals have to be, I'm squinting and scrolling, thank you for your patience, here we go. So this is not my graphic. Please understand that this is to represent the ideas of vortex-based math. And let's see if I can get up here. We can see this light blue color. There we go. So this, what I'm highlighting over here, this is the basic shape that is the torus of vortex-based math. And sometimes this is work that is all popularized by the teacher Marco Rodin, R-O-D-I-N, and he calls this the Abha torus. And basically the idea is that you can see these lines that I'm highlighting. These lines represent vectors or directions of force, and all of the mathematical processes of both addition and subtraction and multiplication and division can all be represented as energy moving around this diagram or lines of force. So when we're moving in one particular direction, we might be adding. When we're moving in a different direction, we might be subtracting or multiplying or dividing. All right, and these are just the basics of it, just giving you the basic concept, and I'll do more meat and potatoes in a subsequent teaching. But over here, what I'm highlighting over here and pointing to with this arrow, this is the torus shape, and you can see it's covered in this skin, and I'm highlighting some of these areas that go along the skin that are like collections of numbers. So there's usually squares, and this is exactly like Sudoku. If you ever played this numbers game, Sudoku has a grid like this, and the grid is filled with cells, and every cell has to have the numbers 1 through 9 in it. So for example, you can't have an 8 here and an 8 here. That is breaking the rules of Sudoku. You have to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 in all of the little squares there. That's the same exact thing that's going on, just rewinding here, in the skin of the torus. It's the same exact thing that's going on. So I'm trying, I don't know if I'm highlighting it accurately, but there are squares that are on the surface of this torus, and that each one of those squares, if it's done correctly, if the surface is mapped correctly, contains all of the digits of 1 through 9 without repetition. And same thing with all of the numbers that are moving what would be considered almost around in a hoop. Like if that's the hoop, I'm holding up my sculpture, it would be what would be going around the hoop at where my pen is currently highlighting, that those numbers also do move in a particular pattern that does not repeat. So now back to my face. This is all about understanding the events, the last moments of death, how the final denouements of each individual's life add up to a certain numerical value, that it's math. I gotta drink a little bit of water. All of this is math, and it has to do with the shape of your DNA. Just drinking water. So what determines what timeline you are on? What determines what timeline you are on? If you are on the core central timeline, or if you're on one that's a little bit to the side, to the side, to the side, what determines that is your dance of your DNA. So I'm just going to draw this again for anyone who, oh, sorry, wrong thing, who might be watching this out of order, because I did this for level 1 today, this simple reiteration, the train cars of reality. Here's one train car, the next train car, the next train car, the next train car. And these are each moments of time, and that we jump from moment to moment along the integument of our DNA. This is a simplified DNA spiral. And also your DNA, it dances. It does all sorts of wonderful twisting, looping, loop-de-loop, curly-Q, trapeze acts, does everything. And if this is, 101, oh, I didn't even write that right, 102, 103, 104, we're moving through time as we move along here. So this is the whole idea, that each one of these areas of your DNA is performing a dance in a particular pattern, and performing that particular dance pattern moves you from train car to train car. This is how you jump from train car to train car. Well, each one of those dances in that dance pattern is also represented by the final denouements in the time vortex. Here's all of your little snapshots, all of your last moments, the frozen moments of you. Here you are. You splattered on the pavement because you jumped out of a window. Here it was a car accident. Here it was a parachute gone awry. Here it was disease or something like that. And all of these final denouements add up in a particular pattern, just like the numbers that are on the outside of that torus skin. I'll go back to that picture so you can see what I'm talking about. This is literal. Going back to the torus pattern, there we go. All of these numbers, like I'm highlighting, get the pencil going here. So annoying sometimes. This number, this number, this number, I'm highlighting these numbers in green. Those represent final denouements, final moments of your life. And the whole idea is, if you get flying rainbow lasagna, this dance going on a genetic level, then you can rearrange all of the final moments of your life into a new arrangement. So this is what human science right now is calling superpositioning and quantum computing. In quantum computing, the idea is that particles of energy can be occupying 2 positions at the same time, and that allows them to explore more than one pathway in terms of computing power. With the flying rainbow lasagna, what this means is that we can take different scoops of reality. We've got the arrangement of reality when this is positioned in this position down here, and we've got the arrangement of reality when it's up here. And by jumping up and down, we have this area of overlap. I'll draw it for you. Like here, go to the whiteboard. Here is one position of the torus in cross section. And here's a different position of the torus. If we jump this one, let's say like this, Oh, that's the worst circle I've ever drawn. Hold on. Sometimes this pen doesn't work perfectly too, so bear with me. There we go. So we have these areas I'll highlight in red. These are areas of overlapping where we could either choose to take a little bit from the green reality or a little bit from the blue reality. And that is what is happening when we transform ourselves from a torus like this into a flying rainbow lasagna like this. How do we do this? This is the advanced class, so I get into the exact specifics of it. It has to do with placing this shape in a higher dimensional context. So up until this point, what we've been discussing is just this as a shape or a form that is just in a vacuum. And this has to do with science's present understanding of time. All of this is about time. And the way to be free is by rearranging your perception of time and your experience of time. So it's worth learning about all of this. Science has this description of time as beginning from the Big Bang, a super condensed little nugget of energy and potential and possibility that expands outward. And if I draw this as a picture, and I'm not a scientist, and I don't believe in all the things that science believes in. I'm just talking about what science describes as the model. Here's the central core, the Big Bang, everything expands outward and creates this time bubble. And according to the time bubble, everything that's inside of the time bubble is the past. And what we're living on here, I'm highlighting it in blue, the surface of the time bubble is the present moment now. And science does not even formally recognize anything outside of the time bubble. Where I just highlighted in black, science does not even formally recognize the existence of the future. So what we have is just a bubble in a contextless space, a bubble in a vacuum, in nothing. And if we took that bubble, and if with my big giant godlike fingers, if I dimpled it in this direction, and like this, and like this, and like this, you know, like stretching the beach ball fabric with my fingers and making them all point towards the middle, that is how we get this singularity, by putting the infinitely heavy bowling ball in the infinitely stretchy fabric of the cosmos and stretching it until everything comes to that convergence point. That's the stretching of everything coming to that convergence point. However, we still have this separation. It's still a membrane, a bubble that separates the inside, like where I'm placing my pen right now, from the outside, where I'm placing my pen right now. And what that means is that if you're on the surface of time, you cannot communicate effectively to the past. You cannot communicate effectively with the future. And the way that you transform the torus into the flying rainbow lasagna is by putting the torus in a context. So let's just put it in a context. If I say, just waiting for the pen to come up, give me a second here. This is the torus, and it's properly shaped, you know, it's the full vortex. So right now there's nothing outside of it. Like I said, I highlighted in black. Science doesn't recognize any of this, no future. There's nothing outside of the present moment now. But all we have to do in order to create the flying rainbow lasagna is put the torus shape in a context. Look, I just put it in a room. It's no longer just a bubble floating in a vacuum with nothing around it. Now it's actually in a room, and it actually has a reference point. It is this far away from this wall, and it is this far away from this wall. So now what we can do is make this shape either jump up and down very fast within the context of this room, or we can hold the shape in one place and make the whole room jump up and down like we're having a big giant earthquake. And when we do that, that is how we create the flying rainbow lasagna shape. And what it means is that singularity, half of the time the singularity is down here, half of the time the singularity is up here, and it's constantly jumping up and down. So first of all, that jumping up and down movement is the movement on a genetic level that transforms and rearranges your DNA. I'll bring up another picture. Picture's worth 1,000 words, and easier than the flapping of my moving mouth parts. Squinting and scrolling, squinting and scrolling. Here, this is, there we go. This is just a little diagram, a very rough and ready diagram that I did that is all about your DNA being used as a genetic placeholder inside of your DNA when it is split apart for RNA replication, that you can have this oscillating maneuver that holds open those two ladders of the genes so that they can then dance in a new way, dance in new combinations. So all of this is about rearranging reality by rearranging your DNA, or rearranging your experience of your flight through time by rearranging your DNA. All right, now we're going to get into energy and entropy. And let me also just drink a little bit of water because I get very thirsty from talking so much, and we're in level 2. I've already been talking for an hour. Okay, energy and entropy. So first I started off this segment by defining this center convergence point as total energy. It's basically all of the energy in the whole entire world. If we took all of the particles and all of the matter and all of the energy in the whole entire world and made it all live in the same house together and overlap, that's what that is. And when we make that central convergence point jump up and down in a context very fast, this is the shape that we get. And so theoretically, we've got energy at both ends, because I'm telling you, this is all about non-duality, not creating extra duality. However, now I'm going to tell you that what we actually have in this shape is 50% of the time, the singularity is expressing the truth of energy, total energy, and the other half of the time, it is expressing the truth of total entropy. Entropy meaning loss of energy. That these are two balanced and complementary states that both lead to unity consciousness, and that this is the solution. This is non-duality. I say this all the time, that the flying rainbow lasagna is the shape that is the embodiment of non-duality, and it is how we can understand both organization and chaos, or good and evil, as both being subsets of the divine or of God. That every little kid asks this question: Mommy, Daddy, if God exists and God is good, how can good and evil both be subsets of God? And the answer is because good and evil are both, or energy and entropy are both these states that lead to unity consciousness. So energy and entropy and states leading to unity consciousness. I just have to collect my thoughts for a moment about exactly where I'm going to go with that. Okay. We need more backstory on galactic history in order to really understand this, but the basic backstory is that not everybody that emanated themselves from the source emanated themselves on a bridge of love. That this is like where you are before you're born into the physical realm. And if you do it on the right way, like the great composer says, not yet, don't play your instrument yet, not yet, now you play. Then you come into a physical, organic, multicellular container like the ones that me and you and everyone here that's alive are wearing. We're very blessed and lucky to have these beautiful containers that we can use in order to walk around. And we have them because we've been following the music. We've been playing the right notes. If we don't play the right notes, what happens is we hit the membrane of death, and then you die and circulate back around. This whole refinery of consciousness is about how we can play the right notes and continue on and playing music indefinitely. However, there were some beings who emanated themselves from the source, but not on a bridge of love and not into organic multicellular containers like we have. And this happened ages and ages and ages ago, much longer ago than the history on this planet, in a different, area of space of our galaxy. Like, this is ancient history, but all of this in order to say that those beings chose, the Gaia is understanding what I'm talking about. Those beings chose not to use love as their fuel. So love is an actual tone. Here's an A note. Love is a tone. Love is the tone that we make on a non-physical level when we are flying through time at exactly the right rate, when we are not clinging to the past or sitting in anticipation and expectation of the future or grasping towards the future. We are moving at exactly the right rate through time. That is us emitting love, and also we consume love. That's we are supposed to be love eaters. That love is the operating system that makes everything in our body run and everything go. And that's how we make babies, and it's how we eat food, and it's how we do everything. However, there are these beings that chose not to emanate themselves on the bridge of love, and their whole gig is entropy. But it's a complex story that I'm telling you now, and we have the time to do it. But usually I save this for the end of the semester, and it's part of the galactic history, and I give the whole entire backstory. But what we need to know about now is entropy. That for some beings, entropy is the desired state. They're not supposed to go towards a state of total energy and total consciousness and total awareness. They're supposed to go towards a state of having no energy, no consciousness, no movement, no energy, no heat, no awareness. So now I got to go through science talk with you. I got to tell you about the states of matter. And the states of matter include, waiting for my pen to come up. Okay, here's solid. This is what we're used to. We're used to the solid physical realm and solid matter. And up from there, there is liquid, like here's like liquid water. And up from there is a gas. And now I'm making little dots, like these are little particles in a gas. And up from there is a plasma. And plasma, I'm making fire. This is supposed to be like a fire. And then up from there is a beam. And the beam is like focused light. So now I'm making these perfect focused light waves. So we can imagine like a beam, a laser beam that keeps going. Those are the states of matter that most people are familiar with, but there is a state of matter that is even denser than the solid matter that we currently know about. So I'm making this in black, dense, dense, dense matter. And that is called a Bose-Einstein condensate. Condensate. Sorry, I'm taking so long to write this all out. The Bose-Einstein condensate, when matter gets to that level, if these are all here, here's an individual atom with a nucleus, individual atom, nucleus, atom, nucleus, atom, nucleus. So when matter has energy and it has heat, the matter moves. The little atoms are moving around. They're flying around and bouncing into each other. If we slow them down, almost completely, if we slow them down almost completely so that they're almost not moving at all and they're almost completely frozen, that is just a little bit above 0 degrees Kelvin. So 0 degrees Kelvin, that is absolute zero. That means no movement, no heat, no energy, no awareness. When we take physical matter like this and we slow it down to almost having no energy, no movement, no heat, what happens is it achieves unity consciousness. That all of these individual atoms start to act in unison. They start to overlap and kind of smear on top of each other and act as if they are all the same being. And that is exactly the same thing that happens when energy gets to the level of total energy. When energy gets to this level of converging at the source or being emanated from the source, this place of overlap at the 0th dimension, energy there achieves unity consciousness. Everything is there. Everyone is there. Every possibility, every probability, everything is there. It's the house where everything lives. And there is also unity consciousness at the diametrically opposed, complete opposite end of the spectrum. So this is what this shape represents. We have, just making the thing not fall. We have half of these pathways that lead towards a state of total energy, and half of these pathways that lead toward a state of total entropy. And this is the whole idea. If our entire cosmos is like a physical cell of a body, go into the whiteboard here, if I can draw this. So here's the cell membrane, and here's the nucleus. And this, everything that I'm highlighting in blue over here, let's say this is experienced reality. And that's what would be the intracellular goo. So what's happening in the nucleus of a regular cell, we've got DNA. And DNA, this is the blueprint for reality. It's the blueprint, it's not manifested reality. Like manifested reality happens in this area that I'm currently scribbling within. But this area that I'm highlighting, this is the area of pure potential. And that's like the center convergence point of that little yellow sculpture I was holding up. It's like the 0th dimension there. Well, here's something to think about. Maybe there's some stuff in here that's not actually supposed to be out here. Like a virus. Like if this is really analogous to a cell rather, in your own body, and this represents the entire totality of the cosmos, in the nucleus of your cell, it is possible to have a virus. And this little black thing that I just drew in there, a virus means an aspect of genetic code that has been inserted that is not original to that body. A virus is a genetic invader that comes in and it makes illness because it says, don't listen to your own genes, listen to my genes, do my dance instead of your own dance. And what if our whole entire cosmos, basically our cosmos and the great composer says, hey, now it's time to emanate you. Now it's time to emanate you. All these blue lines, these are all events and people and consciousnesses that are emanated on a bridge of love, doing what they were supposed to do, following the musical score of the cosmos. And the black stuff that's over there, hello, I see a beautiful person who's tuned in, a beautiful young person, hello and welcome. That black stuff that's up there, that's like a virus. And this great composer over here, that great composer that's in the nucleus, actually said, no, it's not time for you. I'm not going to play those notes. Don't play those notes. Those notes, these notes that I'm pointing to with this black arrow, they're not actually supposed to be there. That's like poop. That's not supposed to be there. So the great composer did not emanate those consciousnesses. And those consciousnesses said, hey, we're not being emanated. We want to be in this area of the cell where stuff happens, the physical realm. How do we get there? Well, we're going to emanate ourselves, but not on a bridge of love, and we're going to use technology in order to do so. So this is the whole idea. It is highly presumptive, and I know this is the advanced level of the class, so I'm asking everyone to really use their brains and think a lot. It is highly presumptive to say that everything that is in existence is supposed to be in existence, just like it's highly presumptive to say in the cell of your own body that necessarily everything that's in the nucleus is supposed to be outside of the nucleus. It's not. So there are some aspects of consciousness or some concepts or some ideas that might have been at the singularity that are not ever supposed to come into the level of red, the physical. They're never actually supposed to get into bodies and be here in the realm or the forum of physicality. The red layer is the layer or the forum or the stage upon which all of these particles and aspects of consciousness and characteristics and forces get to meet and interact and interplay. Because you'll see all of these, none of these other ones connect. There's only two places where it connects. This layer of red, the physical realm, and this layer at the source, the convergence point. None of the rest of these other realms interact directly and connect. So it's like saying if you want to actually meet someone, you have to actually get into the physical realm and get a body, and then you can actually meet them and actually shake their hand. And these beings were not being emanated into the physical realm, and they're like, what's wrong with us? We want to go in there and be on the stage and shake people's hands, even though they're not supposed to be. So this is the whole idea, that some beings, some aspects of consciousness, some characteristics of the higher meta overarching cosmic self are not desirable characteristics. Just because they're here in reality does not necessarily mean that they are supposed to be in reality. And we're in this refinery of consciousness where we are refining out the light, the awareness, the organized intelligence from the stuff that is the poop, the stuff that is the waste, that is not organized, that is not desirable, that is not intentional. So now let's get back into that time vortex model that I was drawing a lot in level 1. So now what I'm highlighting in black, this is the membrane of death. Oh, you know what? I gotta mute everyone, not because I don't love you, but because I'm getting feedback on, I'm hearing two things at once, and it can make feedback on the microphone. Hold on a second, too. Let me drink some water. Just drinking some water. The membrane of death. What happens when you hit the membrane of death? We've got all these religious teachings, and we've got all of these sentimental things too. I had a beautiful cat. Her name was Miss Ashley. I called her the boss. Miss Ashley the boss died in January. It was very, very sad. She was attacked by another animal, and I'm still grieving over her, but she was a wonderful, wonderful cat. And when she died, I missed her so much that I still wanted her to be alive. And I imagined her, oh, she's in an afterlife. She's in another place. I had to learn that that's not actually the best thing that I can imagine for her. So now let's talk about overlapping time cones. Okay, so I just drew that green time cone. Let's draw another time cone. And let's see that this represents two different lives, like my cat's life and my life. And this area that I'm highlighting in red, this is the area of coincidence. This is where these two life time cones overlap. So go back to blue. All of these blue timelines overlap with all of these green timelines like this. But look, once we get past this level, none of these timelines overlap anymore. So this has to do with death and ascension. If someone dies on your timeline, it doesn't mean they're not ascending. It means they died on your timeline. I'm going to describe this more fully because I know that this is a challenging concept to fully embody and understand. So if my cat is blue, my cat, oops, oh, that wasn't what I wanted to do. Sorry, now I have to redraw all of that. I pressed the wrong button. Let's do it again. Green is over here. Blue is over here, and my cat represents blue. So this was the last timeline where my cat, who was coming in from this direction, that was the last timeline where my cat was in that area of coincidence with me. But look, there's this timeline here. There's this timeline here, and this one here, and this one here. And of course, her infinity timeline. Every single time cone has an infinity timeline. This is the map. This is how we know profoundly that everybody has within them the potential to be an ascended master, to be a perfected or a refined divine being, like a term paper that has been fully edited with all the spelling and grammar mistakes removed, saying only what it absolutely wants to say. Everybody, every microbe, every physical being has that core central timeline innately as part of them. So I know that my cat exists on this timeline with, as an ascended master cat. And I also know that my cat occupies all of these other timelines where I'm simply not with her. Because what I'm doing, now let's go to green, that's my timeline, I'm over here. Or I'm over here, or I'm over here on this timeline that goes to infinity. And that means that what I experienced with the death of my cat was, put my sculpture down, I experienced a diverging of our consciousnesses, but that doesn't mean that she is not in existence. She is still in existence on another timeline, in another place. But that is really, really different than imagining her on the membrane of death. Now let's go back to this.